Sugar's Magic Circus. Keith, I don't know what's going on with all this mail we're getting. Lots of fan mail.
Yeah, we went to the electronicals for a while, and then my computer, literally it blew up. There was a fire on the table, and Kirsty had to pour her scotch over the top of it to put the fire out. That didn't work. We flambéed the computer. But now we're still getting a lot of paper mail again. And apparently the post office, because of the Ebola virus, there's an issue there. So I don't know. But some letters are getting through. Anyway, this is an interesting one. It's from Mr. Vito Corleone. So, dear sirs, I'm writing, hoping you would do a show about Marines who are formerly enlisted and become officers. My son Michael wants to join the Marine Corps. I would rather he wait to finish college and then join the Marine Corps as an officer, but he assures me he can become an officer once he's enlisted, and then there's a program to do this. The recruiter has said that this is a fact. I don't trust anybody, and I can't read that part. Something to the effect that the recruiter should make sure he comes through as promised.
Yeah.
If you would put this on the show for me, you would be my friend for life, and then people will truly fear you. Thank you, Vito Corleone. So that's today's letter. So I guess we're going to talk about enlisted Marines becoming officers.
Well, that sounds great. And I couldn't think of anybody better than somebody that we know, somebody that we've been working with for a few years, who recently went through this exact experience, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Brian Downer, former enlisted Marine, Staff Sergeant of Marines, goes off and becomes an officer, goes to OCS. And this was all very recent, right, Brian?
It was 2018 is when I commissioned.
Yeah.
So congratulations, firstly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Good
cheers.
for you. Now, tell me this, Brian. One of the things we always do on this show is ask people one of the things that's really interesting about Marines is they all have this just weird pathways of how they ended up in the Marine Corps. So we always ask, like, what made you think to join the Marine Corps? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from a pretty early age, I kind of recognized that my life was super easy, and that any problems I was dealing with were all self-induced, and I recognized that I was pretty undisciplined, and so I knew I needed something that would sort of force that into me. And I also kind of thought that if the nation was at war, like I would join and try and do my part. And it just so happened 9/11 happened when I was a freshman. And at that point I sort of knew that I would enlist when I was 18. And so I did, and it's been a good journey.
So you just went down to the recruiter and was like, I want to join the Marine Corps.
So he called me, and it was a Tuesday night. He called me at like 8:30, and I had homework to do, but it seemed to me a good excuse to not do it. So I went and talked to him, and it was kind of interesting. We were talking about something that seemed like sort of irrelevant. Next thing I know, he was standing up to shake my hand and tell me, congratulations on joining the Brotherhood. And I was like, but I guess, okay, like I'm part of the team now, so like I'll sign the contract. Come to find out later, it was a pretty sly move on his part, but good aggression. So,
right.
And I went with it. So
yeah, well, all the tricks of the trade. That's a tough tour. Those guys are trying to put people in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hats off to you guys. Sorry about that.
However, you're not the first.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
So you graduated. You went to boot camp.
Yep. Graduated 05.
And you went to Parris Island.
West Coast.
You were West Coast.
MCRD. Okay. So from there went to security forces. Went out to Rota, Spain. Did the fast company.
So hang on, Marine Security Forces. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have not talked about that.
No, we haven't.
What is it?
So, to explain kind of how that happened, I told the recruiter that my highest ambition in life was to become a cop someday. And he said, well, you can do something similar in the Marine Corps, but you'll probably be at the White House as like a guard for the president. And to me, as an 18-year-old kid, that seemed pretty fancy.
Ooh, that sounds fancy.
Yeah, so he got me on board with that in explaining that to someday become a cop, there's no better pathway than through Marine Corps Security Forces. which is debatable.
I have never heard that one
Yeah,
before.
debatable, right?
This guy's good.
He was good. And being like relatively naive and 18 years old, I was eating it up. Had visions of grandeur, and thought like, hey, I can do this. So it happened, and it worked out. I learned a lot along the way, but spent time in Spain just doing security force type stuff.
Yeah, so what do they do exactly? They're the guys that guard sort of some specialized locations where we keep maybe things like
Yeah, talk a little bit about the mission for those cats.
So in
weapons depots and things like that, right?
Yeah, so that is the primary mission, I believe. In our base in Rota, we would usually jump on like these pre-positioned ships that kind of float around waiting for World War III to happen. When they would go through the Straits of Gibraltar to this very narrow strait, got Morocco like right on the other side, and they would just put us on these ships to beef up security in case some pirates wanted to get sporty. So we would route through the straits, and then we would fly back to Spain and kind of hang out, wait for the next ship.
And embassies, right? Things go upside down in an
right.
embassy.
That was always the contingency that we were training for.
So you cats are on a rotation.
Right.
By platoon, right?
Right.
So one guy's resting, one guy's working up, one guy's on standby.
Yep.
And so you gauge your alcohol consumption by that.
That's right. Yeah. And then
Was it good duty?
It was, but not in comparison to what my buddies were doing, which is going to Iraq. They were in infantry platoons, and so even though we were doing this duty that had some value, obviously, it was hard to see that when you compared it to what your peers were doing.
Yeah.
And so I made it a habit of, on a weekly basis telling the platoon sergeant that I'd like to volunteer for an individual augment billet to Iraq. And it just so happened he found one for me 11 months after I got to Spain to go on what they call a police transition team to Iraq. 12 other dudes, and we would go and partner with Iraqi police and train them. And so I had that opportunity. It was a good duty.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to serve out my second year of the 2-year obligated security force.
So that counted as security force time?
It did, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
actually very cool.
That's a good hookup.
Yeah, that was a good
Really?
hookup.
It was.
And
as opposed to getting
and where
fucked
were
up.
you in Iraq where were you training police at?
Hit.
Yeah, sure.
So, and it was there then that I was exposed to, SOCOM units. There was a SEAL team there.
Okay.
And we would plan for missions, and then at the last minute, the SEAL teams would swoop in, take the mission from us, and we'd be stuck on the outer cordon. And I was thinking to myself, like, how do I get in the house, so to speak?
Yeah.
Which is what led me to try to get to ANS when I got back from my deployment.
So one of the things about now Lieutenant Downer is the fact that he's had like a pretty unique career, right? So
Yeah, very odd.
after that, he goes to MARSOC, right?
Yeah.
Takes selection,
Yeah.
and you passed with flying colors, and then you were also a MARSOC Marine. So just another opportunity for people to see like the divergent pathways from which all that. You can literally be a tuba player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have I know a guy right now who played in the Marine Corps band.
Yeah. One of our
He
students.
was, he was a guitar player in the band.
You know who we're talking about.
Yeah, and now he's at MARSOC.
People think the Marine Corps is very stovepiped, when in fact it is not. And every time they think it's getting stovepiped, they institute some sort of weird thing. When I was in, they instituted a program for grunts, actually for combat arms, lieutenants and captains. That after so many years, they just come down and go, hey you're going to go to Motor T for 3 years. You guys go, what? And you're going to be an 01 adjutant or whatever, and you're going to go to supply, and guys are losing their minds going, no, we're getting too stovepiped. We need to cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
And so the Marine Corps it offers you those opportunities if you'll take them.
Well, and it's interesting because one of the things that the Marine Corps I think is very good at is that idea that, especially in the officer ranks, like they don't specialize officers. They like officers to be generalists, and so they do like to move officers around into different challenges, over the course of their career, because you get an exposure to various things across the wide spectrum of the Marine Corps. by the time you're up into the general officer ranks, man, you've seen
You've
just
seen a lot
about
of shit,
everything. You know
yeah.
what I mean? You've seen some little slice of every.
Well, it's
of every
kind of like,
problem.
my thought is it goes guns, staff, school. Guns, staff,
Yeah.
school. And the staff's like, this kind of sucks. And the school's like, can be fun or not.
Yeah.
And then I get to go pull triggers again, right? You promised.
I'm blowing stuff
And they
up.
keep the promises.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you did your time at MARSOC. How long were you at MARSOC for?
10 years.
10 years. And what was the progression like there? Deployments and how did that?
Yeah, a lot of work in. So I was fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, to be selected for the advanced linguist course right after ITC, and at the time it was 9 months long.
ITC is the initial training pipeline to teach guys how to be a special operator, and it's about 9 months long, roughly,
It is,
right?
yeah.
And
Plus, then at the end, there's a language component as well.
Jump school.
And you're saying you had an additional language.
Right.
Okay.
So.
Because you're not a dummy.
Yeah.
So you're talking about well over a year of training before you.
It was
really-
about 18 months
Okay.
of actual training.
Wow.
Not accounting for like the month in between ITC and ALC, the language school. So spent 9 months in there, which in truth was a good sort of break from the ITC schedule to now go to this like full-time student schedule where I'm home every night, able to see the wife and everything. And so it was good, but that in a sense keyholed me into Southeast Asia deployments.
Yeah.
Which were interesting in their own right.
Well, Southeast Asia is a pretty interesting place, as they say.
Absolutely.
A lot of odd things happen there.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, did several deployments over there. Had a great time, but also in the back of my mind, I always kind of thought that I would commission, and had plans to do it much earlier in my career. But you work so hard to get to the teams
Sure.
that once you get there, you don't want to leave. And you also realize that the quality of individuals that you're working with is so far beyond like the organization that you kind of happen getting into.
Yeah.
Because everyone is screened and selected at such a high level, you don't want to leave that type of community.
No, absolutely. I mean, we all have suffered that before. Like I said, guns, staff, school.
Right.
You get to the guns piece, you hang on by fingernails, never to leave again.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was on the verge of tears when I had to rotate out of recon. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
I just got here like an hour ago.
Yeah.
No, you've been here quite a while. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's we should make great light of that.
Mhm.
But the reality is, you don't want to leave.
Right.
Because those cats are just special people.
Right.
So you have a volunteer force, right? So you have a small percentage of the population of the United States that decides that they want to serve.
Yeah.
Then within that, because we are Marines, it's just the way it is. Sorry, guys.
Live with it.
We are, I feel, one of the more stringent selectors of people within the Marine Corps. Then within the Marine Corps, now you have another selection process that winnows it down then to
Further,
people
finitely.
who have infinitely more characteristics that you're looking for. And so you end up with this like highly selected group of people who are really intelligent and capable of like logical thought and problem solving
And
skills and
eclectic
critical
beyond
thinking.
reason.
Yeah, they're very eclectic.
These are some eclectic people, which makes for a funny day.
And they generally tend to also be very driven. So they're like a lot of initiative and a lot of motivation.
Goal
so,
focused.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you find yourself not in that environment anymore, it's like, what is wrong with all of you?
Uh-huh. Then you become retired. And we talked about that a couple weeks
We
ago.
sure did.
And there's a great issue.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting idea that you said to yourself, like that's a lot, but it's not enough. So what were the programs that you started to look into, and how did that play out?
Yeah. So the Marine Corps has a few for enlisted guys to commission. MECEP is a popular one because it allows someone who has just a few college credits, maybe a math class and an English class, to apply. They go to OCS if they're selected and make it through OCS, then they'll go to college. As a full-time student, they're still making full pay and
Yeah.
benefits, healthcare benefits, the whole nine, but they're
So
college
MESEP
students.
is the Marine Corps' enlisted commissioning program.
Yeah,
Right?
and
So
then
you spend 4 years as, let's say, a staff sergeant.
mhm,
If you're selected for this program,
mhm,
you keep your hair short, you follow Marine Corps regulations,
right,
but your job now, instead of pulling triggers, is going to school
that's right, that's right.
Full time.
full time.
And
Yeah.
those years that you spend in school are still contributing to your overall 20 years necessary for retirement.
Right.
So it's a pretty
big
incredible
gig.
gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But also very competitive because the qualification to get into it is fairly low, right? There's not a lot of, you don't need a lot.
right,
No NJPs within
Right.
the last 12 months, meaning you didn't get in any trouble in the last 12
Yeah.
months, right? There's some other, you have
Recommended-
to be a
recommended
sergeant,
by
you have to be
the CO,
recommended, like,
yeah.
right.
but there's no requirement for a lot of college.
No,
In fact, there's
That's the
nothing.
beauty of it. That's
Yeah.
we're trying to get guys who didn't have the opportunity to go to college,
Mhm.
but are bright individuals.
Yeah.
Here's a shot.
But
right.
Brian, you had already been going to college at this point, right?
So I had basically converted a walk-in closet to an office in my room and would slave away at night to get this check in the box. And another thing that I'd wanted to do for a while, but it wasn't going to come to me. I had to go after it, and so I made it happen and sort of sat on the degree then for a couple of years before I actually decided like maybe I should commission and take advantage of this opportunity.
Important editorial note, because we know Brian very well. Brian doesn't sleep. What do you average, like 2 hours a night now?
You know.
Yeah, Brian doesn't sleep.
So yeah, in any case, like made it happen, and was on duty one night, and at that point I was going for my graduate degree, and I finished my homework, and I had a choice to either, hang out and like maybe watch TV, or look at this ECP package, which is another program that the Marine Corps has for guys who are enlisted but also have their degree to just go to OCS and commission upon graduation.
The enlisted commissioning program.
Right.
it's
Yeah.
called.
And so I just pulled up the ECP package because I didn't know what else to do, and I decided like, hey, I'm just going to fill this out, submit it, and kind of see what happens. And it worked out where when I submitted it, it was only about 80% complete. And I got an email from Headquarters Marine Corps saying, hey, if you want your package considered on this upcoming board, you have to submit these additional documents. And
Remember when he was going through
I
all
do,
this at
yeah.
work?
yeah,
Helmet fire! Helmet fire!
yeah. So I did submit a portion of those, but not all, because this is carrying out over the course of 2-3 weeks,
Yeah.
and in that amount of time, I found something else that kind of caught my interest, and so I was very much like beyond the idea of commissioning in my own mind until like 3 months later. Then I get this collection of emails all saying like, congrats on your selection to ECP, and I was like, I didn't even know I fully submitted.
Kind of like when you listed, congratulations, welcome aboard.
This seems to be a trend with this guy. What the heck,
I
man?
think so, yeah.
Shiny object, shiny object.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean I joined the Foreign Legion?
Yeah, right.
Nice.
So I went home and I told my wife, I was like, hey, I think like
We're moving.
maybe this is like meant to be. So I'm gonna go and follow through
Nice.
and go to OCS and kind of see what happens. And she was totally on board. I think in the back of her mind for a long time she was wanting me to go in that direction.
Sure.
And so when I told her the way it worked out, she was like yeah, dummy, like let's do it. You know?
Right?
What
Isn't
have
that
you
funny?
been waiting so long for? So
So I was a career planner for a while. That's how I know a
Yeah.
lot of these acronyms and things, right? But I was helping guys get this stuff done, and they were putting packages in. I was helping them get the paperwork done and pushing it through and all that stuff. And I remember going home. Jill's over there running the cameras right now. I remember going home and being like, "Yeah, I helped another guy get to OCS," and I was like, "Why don't I do that?" And I remember what her answer was, which is funny, because she said, "I don't know, why don't you?" And so yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
I find it fascinating, and we kind of glossed over because you understand, but some of the people out there in TV land don't. We have lots of Marines with college degrees.
Mhm.
Lots and lots of Marines with college degrees.
Right.
We have lots of people in the military right now with college degrees. One of our daughters, I can say this now because she's out, was a crypto-linguist in the Army, and of the 40 kids in her platoon, 38 of them had degrees,
Yeah.
all enlisted.
Yeah.
Right.
And people don't realize that, and a lot of young Marines are getting degrees on their own time. Now, granted, the grunts or the combat arms in general, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
That's why we say Brian never slept, because Brian's in a team and he's getting a college degree.
Yeah.
But if you use your downtime smartly, and people just look at this like lug nuts and crayon eaters, and Sal and I are, but a lot of guys are not.
Yeah.
And I think we do not socialize that very well to Mr. and Mrs. America.
Yeah. It's true.
Probably sometimes for a reason.
Yeah.
So, Brian, tell me this. I know going from an enlisted experience to an officer experience can be a bit of a transition. How did you find your experience at OCS?
I'm dying to hear this.
Yeah, and well, actually, so I tried to go in with an open mind, recognizing that if I had an issue with my peer, it likely wasn't because he was a bad dude, it's just because he was younger than me and a little bit more inexperienced, and I couldn't hold that against him. And I think with that sort of in the back of my mind, I was set up mentally for success in my interactions with people. What I found though is that the quality of guys at OCS, and there were females there too, it's like much higher than I was expecting.
Oh, good.
Like, almost uniformly, bright and fit and committed and motivated.
Excellent.
And to see that, especially kind of going in and being a bit skeptical, I was very, very encouraged by what I saw.
Did you get any pushback from the staff when you show up with a chicken on a stick on your chest?
So I buried that on the advice of Colonel Gilman.
Good plan.
Yeah, I buried that, and I did my best to keep that under wraps. The problem was they made us write a bio.
Yeah, they always do.
Specifically addressing previous military experience.
Of course.
And so I had a choice at that point. Like I could lie.
No.
That's
or
a
like,
bad plan.
I did omit like certain details, but it was so obvious where I was coming from, and at that point, I think I probably got some leeway with the sergeant instructors because they understood that I wasn't there to mess around. Like I had a mission was to go there and do well and graduate. And because they could worry less about me, they could focus more on people who maybe...
We all had prior listed guys in our OCS classes. I did.
Yeah.
One of them was a guy in the next rack over, was a Vietnam vet. Great guy. Taught me a lot of stuff. And those guys can be very helpful to you. I had guys in TDS who were prior enlisted too, and they showed us all sorts of great stuff. If you're a good dude.
Right.
If they thought you were a jerk-off, they'd watch you drown.
Right.
Which I thought was hysterical.
I had a bunkmate for a very short period of time that was a privileged, I don't know, it was a Princeton or Harvard grad. It was just he could not comprehend the idea. I told you this.
Yeah, it's funny. But tell them.
He just couldn't stop, complaining, basically. They'd yell at him and he'd be like, they have not provided us with sufficient time in order to produce the results that they are expecting from us. I'm like, dude, just fucking make your rack. So do you anything like that? Run into any weirdos?
Yeah, but yeah, and again, so I've seen higher ranking officers from Ivy League schools who are very, very good.
Oh my
very
God.
Yeah,
impressive.
erudite
Sure.
and intelligent and worldly beyond reason.
Yeah. The ones that showed up to our OCS class were not. They didn't have. So I think back to Wild Bill Donovan, the guy who started the OSS, said when he was recruiting for this organization that later became the CIA, he was looking for PhDs who could win a bar fight.
Yeah.
And so the types that we had at OCS were the PhD types, but not the type that could win a bar fight.
That's a problem across America.
Right.
I think so. It's a societal and generational.
Yeah, we basically have raised the nation of pussies in the last 40 years.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
You can't say that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So I think those dudes, they left in the first week or two.
Interesting.
What that left though was this collection of dudes who were legit. Like I said, smart and fit, and they were motivated. and I wasn't necessarily expecting that.
Mm.
So I was impressed.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting because your experience is guys who already graduated college.
Right.
Whereas my experiences were you go while you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
So the dynamic is even goofier
Yeah.
on the extremes.
Right.
You got the guy shows up with a 150-pound brain who cannot get his shoes tied in the allotted amount of time.
Yeah.
And you got thugs. And in those days, a long time ago, you can do a lot of pull-ups and pretty much thuggery.
Yeah.
And you were smart enough to figure out how to write a 5-paragraph order.
Yeah.
You're going to work out okie dokie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was a different dynamic. But you're dealing with 18 and 19-year-olds in OCS at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And all the drill instructors or the sergeant instructor and the platoon sergeant are prior drill instructors, so they know exactly how to weed people out and how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very interesting dynamic for a guy like you to walk into that.
Yeah.
One of the weird things for me was in boot camp, you'd go for 13 weeks and that's it. You graduate. But in OCS, they sort of give you some freedom. About halfway through, you start getting weekends off.
Well, you get Saturday afternoon and Sunday till dinner
weekends,
time.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that like it was actually really difficult
To go
mentally
on that, yeah.
to psych yourself up to walk yourself back. It's like being in prison in a sense, right? And then they let you out on the weekend, you're like, but you got to come back to prison. You're like, but I don't want to go back to prison.
I like this outside stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you experience that a
Yeah,
bit? Or?
yeah, the Sunday scaries, as they call it.
Yeah.
It's a real
Yeah,
thing.
it's a real thing.
It's a
It's
real
a real
thing.
thing.
So, yeah, so the way it's set up now is that beginning the third week of the overall 10-week OCS, you start getting off Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
You got to be back at a certain time on Sunday evening.
Yeah.
But it's just enough time to refamiliarize yourself with the creature comforts that you miss so much at that
Yeah.
point, which then makes returning that much more difficult.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's genius on the Marine Corps'
Yeah.
part.
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
It is.
It allows folks enough rope to hang themselves in.
I saw a lot of people quit after the first week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. That's the big drop. It's that third week. The guy says, you come back Sunday night and there's like 12 empty racks. And you're like,
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah, right.
And it was interesting because, again, there's so many moving parts these days. My brother was in TBS while I was in OCS.
Mhm.
So I would just take the cattle car down the main side, he'd come and get me. And I'd stay at his house because he was married at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm getting the, what do you want? Beer and pizza, and I'd fall asleep on the couch, and,
Yeah.
and that was the excited the Saturday night's fun.
Yeah.
But I'm also getting whispers in my ear, and listen, you're coming up on week 3, you're going to go through this.
Yeah.
To understand what you're doing, think about this, don't think about that on this tactical problem, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I'd run back to the squad base and say, listen, my brother says this, we're going to do this on Wednesday, we're probably going to go through this tactical course. None of it's always 100% right,
Right.
but at least it helps you mentally to gear up on Sunday night when you're feeling like starting a pistol.
Yeah.
Instead, you're like, yeah, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do
Right.
this, I can do this. It's interesting, and and you get better and better and better in the Marine Corps about asking questions of guys who've already done it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of guys in college who'd already been through it too. So
Yeah.
before I walked out the door, I had got as much intel as I could.
Right.
It's a completely different animal for a guy who's been
But-
through boot camp,
Exactly, that's what I
enlisted
mean,
guy,
yeah.
already kind of has a goal. Not kind of has a goal. He has Brian has a specific goal. He's
Yeah.
trying to get through this thing. It's different
Uh-huh.
than the guy who's coming off the street and like, wow, this is like such a culture shock for
Yeah.
me. And
Brian, you know mind games. You've been through
Right.
them all.
yeah,
So that you can't affect a prior enlisted guy in OCS with mind games because they're just going
Right.
to stand there and give you the 1,000-yard stare, and you know what's going.
Mhm.
Watching your peers wig the fuck out.
Right.
yeah,
So it is, in a sense, it's so insular and you're so in the weeds with everything, and there are so many mind games that I think for prior enlisted guys, especially, like if you allow yourself to worry a little bit and be a little bit scared about whether or not you're going to pass, it can either debilitate you or it can serve as like jet fuel and just
sure.
like
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
so you perform at such a higher level. Because I did see prior enlisted guys who went in with the mentality that like,
Or copped an attitude.
yeah, I've got combat experience X, Y, and Z, chest beaters, and they didn't do well.
Yeah.
No,
No, that's
because they,
exactly right.
no one could tell them anything.
Yeah.
But I took the opposite approach, which was like, I not only have to pass, but I have to uphold this image that people have of the special ops guy,
Yeah,
that I know not only have to like finish every event, but I've got to be first.
yeah,
Otherwise, like I'm not living up to this expectation.
yeah.
That I think exists, but it was probably built up even more in my own mind.
We are, Doc Green tells us all the time, we are our own worst critics.
Yeah.
Right.
We talk about Doc Green a lot on the show because he's our buddy.
Yeah.
And but Doc has told us that many times. We are our own worst critics.
Right.
And sometimes that's not a bad thing.
Right.
As you were just pointed out.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So OCS went well.
Mhm.
Anything in between? Did you get a chance to do anything in between, or did you go right to TBS?
So I had an opportunity to go back and work in the future ops section at MARSOC and be exposed to the type of problems that they were working on. And for me it was fascinating because it was there is a degree of like abstract thought and like trying to determine not only what the problems you're facing right then are, but what are the problems you're going to be dealing with like 10 years down the line. And there's so much that goes into that. I would leave work every day mentally exhausted.
Alternate futures.
And it was like, it was so exciting though at the same time
sure.
because I was working with higher ranking officers who I could tell were the types that upon graduation from OCS, those were the dudes who had like committed themselves to like improving and would read nonstop.
Right.
And it gave me a model to try and emulate. And so I don't think that is unique or that's common at all for lieutenants to get that sort of exposure.
No,
you sort of
not.
have your SPCs at TBS, and they're captains and they're all very good.
Sure.
But to then see, okay, what could my life look like 10, 15 years down the line if I really commit myself to this?
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It really is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I lucked out completely.
Nice.
And again, like I'll just give him another shout out. That was opened up to me by Colonel Gilman, who just I think to this day is like the model of what a leader is. And so yeah, I've got like the model there to try and
To emulate, sure.
to emulate.
I think that's another thing that Mr. and Mrs. America don't understand is that on a day-to-day basis, they just think it's John Wayne movie guys running off little boats.
Hud, 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 hud,
Yeah.
hud, hud,
Yeah.
hud,
There
hud,
are
hud,
people
hud.
in buildings, nondescript buildings, all over this country, thinking about things 10 years from now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We've all been rubbing elbows with those people, and I marvel at their intelligence and their ability to. It's a cross between being Einstein and a seer,
Mhm.
and they got this crystal ball which only works half the time, and it's just fascinating.
Mhm.
And these contingency plans are built on that, and we have plans for everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And you wouldn't know it, and Mr. and Mrs. America, who thinks about that? We hardly think about it, but it's
Yeah.
there, it exists.
Mhm.
It's fascinating that these guys can do it.
So the goal at OCS is to screen out those people who are not qualified to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal at TBS then is it's the beginning of the education, right?
Mhm.
TBS is all about the basic school, by the way, if you didn't know. We'll probably talk about it several times now. But
Yeah.
the basic school is designed to teach each officer, regardless of what their MOS is going to be, because in the Marine Corps we like to think of ourselves as every Marine a rifleman and every Marine commander, a platoon commander, an
Mhm.
infantryman. So it teaches all officers how to be a basic platoon commander,
Mhm.
right? How was your experience there?
Yeah, so again, I think I was a bit skeptical going in, but I was truly blown away at the quality of the training there. We were doing a lot of force-on-force stuff, so we were split into 6 platoons, and everything we did was platoon on platoon. And there's just no better way to get a sense for the chaos that naturally occurs in warfare,
Yeah.
unless you're doing stuff like that. And so I had the added benefit of this past experience, but even for guys who are just coming in through the pipeline to get that experience, like 2.5 months after joining, is it's pretty remarkable. And I think in that sense, like the Marine Corps does it right and better than everyone else.
Yeah.
So I was truly impressed by that.
So you learn how to shoot, how to move, how to communicate, how to patrol, how to ride a patrol.
But you also
order.
learn how all the other pieces parts work.
Yeah.
How do I call for artillery? What do the jets do? How do I get a helicopter here? What does the admin guy do? How do I get paid? How do my Marines get paid?
How important is logistics?
Yeah. And which we all laugh about. Even I mean, I go about 4 hours without eating. I'm done.
Yeah.
What do you mean there's no MRAs? I surrender.
Yeah.
I mean, and so we learn all those things jammed into 6 months, and I've read on more than one occasion that 6 month school, if you could take knowledge as a solid and lay it out in blocks, it's about 4 years of a college education crammed into 6 months. And it is a very intense program.
It is intense, and I think that's like anything. I think the Marine Corps has a good understanding of the fact that it doesn't mean anything if it's not hard. So you want these experiences to be a kick in the gut, because when you get through to the other side, you actually feel like you accomplished something. And even coming from my background, I still had that sense graduating TBS, because I was exposed to things like Keith is talking about, stuff that I had never thought about before, because you are on a team, you're always in a supported relationship, and you've got a lot of ass behind you to support you in the things that you need to accomplish. But then to kind of peel back the onion and realize, like, this is a whole orchestra that's coming together for this like single performance. And in a lot of ways, what the dudes are doing behind the scenes is equally impressive if you actually, get a true sense of like what that entails.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely.
So it was again like a very rewarding experience, and I was super impressed by the captains that were there, that were 25, 26 years old, and these guys had obviously like put in the time to study. Like MCDP 1, they could spout that off so well. And I think on the enlisted side there is a degree of not disdain, that's too strong, but just sort of neutrality towards like Marine Corps publications and stuff like that.
Suspicion, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't read those things. We just do what we need to do.
Yeah, exactly. And to a large extent, that's true.
That's true.
Corporal Jones showed me how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was forced to get into some of those pubs. I was like blown away at how good they were.
Yeah.
MCDP 1 specifically, like people, like to laugh about it, and I was one of those guys like a year ago before I'd actually read it myself. But once you get into the weeds of that, you can apply it to your previous combat experience. You can apply it to, like the Battle of Gettysburg and stuff like that, and see how
which we do. Marine Corps is huge on history studies.
Very good.
And transferring that over to modern day techniques. And I think we do that better than anybody. We do it constantly at every level of school.
Yeah. I think part of it too is so much of the warfighting publication was built off the ideas of John Boyd. And I think 10, 20 years from now, John Boyd is going to be held in the same light as like Sun Tzu and Clausewitz. So it's a terrific read, both for guys who are getting ready to go to boot camp or OCS, or guys who are in right now. It's a valuable and important book, I think.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that sticks with you forever. I mean, we laugh. My wife's sitting right over there. You can ask her. We run all things when the kids were little by SMEAC. Everything was fun. Sit down at the dining room table, on vacation, whatever. All right, situation, mission, execution, admin, logistics, command, and signal. And I'd run it through with like 2 7-year-olds and a 4-year-old. But it's the only way I can organize shit in my mind. And it becomes, again, the institutionalization of the Marine. I do it to this day. Saturday morning, what are we doing? We need this. I start mapping things out. He yells at me all the time. You're not the 3 anymore. Stop it.
So I'm at, we're just coming into the war actually, and TBS. And it's just force on force stuff, just like you're talking about. And I pushed out a reconnaissance element, and I'm briefing my SMEAC, and the reconnaissance element comes up on the radio, and this is for grade, right? The SPC is grading me. I'm briefing my sand table. I'm getting everybody set up for their mission, whatever, right? And somebody comes back on the radio. They're like, "Hey, they just rolled up on the enemy, and they said that they're all just kind of hanging out eating chow. What do you want me to do? I was like, light them up. And I went back to briefing my SMEAG, right? So it was like a CAT team. So it was a combined anti-armor team. A couple of vehicles had gone out, and they caught the enemy, the simulated enemy, in chow, in the morning, preparing to just get ready for the day. They shot him up, and I won the war. So what do you think the SPCs did for me?
No idea.
Yeah, they reset.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you can't win.
No, you can't win that easy.
Keep playing.
Yeah, we're supposed to be out here till Thursday. Let's everybody reset. I've seen that show before.
Yeah.
The only time we ever get pulled out of the field order from TBS is it rained for like 10 days. And all the little streams that you jump across while you're at land having and stuff, it turned into like the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And guys were getting washed downstream and stuff. Well, they had to call it. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the SPCs all gathered together with the scowls on
Oh,
their
yeah.
faces.
And somebody's got a radio. There's always a Lance Corporal with a radio standing there.
Yeah.
We will not allow it.
Like the Wizard of Oz. No, come back tomorrow.
You broke the game.
I broke the game. Yeah, I broke the game. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
It was my, what was that book? The space book.
Oh, Starship
Ender's
Troopers?
Game.
Oh, Ender's Game.
Ender's Game, yeah. I Ender's Game that. So TBS ends, Brian Downer decides, because everybody knows that in TBS we decide what our MOS is going to be,
right.
So how did you decide what you were going to do, Brian?
So you make a wish list, and it's needs of the Marine Corps. So ultimately, you tell them what you'd like to do.
They laugh.
Yeah. So they like to say they take it into consideration.
They really do.
Yeah.
I make light, but they really do.
Yeah. I think actually if you look at the stats, something like 92% of TBS grads get something in their top 7.
Yeah, pretty good.
So and that's in a field of like 22, 21 MOSs. So it's saying something. They definitely work to get guys what they want. So yeah, got a new MOS that's completely different than what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And it's in a way like cool because it's there's a learning curve associated with everything.
Sure.
And that's kind of a good environment to be in terms of professional development. Even if I, wanted to come back at some point, it's an additional skill set I bring to a team that wouldn't otherwise have it.
So because we know you play three-dimensional chess.
Yeah.
Like, what's the thought process? Because he's dancing around with the MOSs.
Yeah.
But you probably have a thought process about where you're trying to get in 10 years, and that's probably why you picked what you picked.
I'm curious, before you answer, I'm curious if it's what he had told us it was going to be a year ago. So I want to see if we're still on track.
So
we asked Brian this question a year ago because we all worked together. We're like, what's the end state? Because Brian is that guy who plays three-dimensional chess in the sky.
Yeah.
So that we want to know.
Yeah. I think I don't think that end state, and I'll be, somewhat vague there. I don't think that end state has changed.
Good.
It looks like service to the country still. It's in a different capacity, but I do think that in order to achieve that and be good at that, there's a lot I can learn here, both in the new job, and
Which is what?
Which is manpower.
Manpower.
Which is
nice.
Which is funny because the Marine Corps is trying to rebrand adjutant to this new thing, manpower, which
Interesting.
in many ways is the same. In certain ways is much different. It's an emphasis of focus on like actual manning levels of the Marine Corps. What do we do to incentivize to keep good guys in, and what are pathways to?
Sounds like talent management.
Well, more prognostication as well.
Yeah,
If you think about it.
Yeah.
How do we figure this out? How do we get those little fat ass Game Boy faggots into being people with slit throats?
Yeah. Right.
Just a thought.
Yeah. No, I think that's basically true. Yeah.
The thoughts of a Cro-Magnon man.
I wear the mantle proudly.
Yeah. So But what that allows is in the near term time to focus on like school. I'll get to see the family more, which is something I missed out on.
Cherish those moments because
Yeah.
we've all been there.
Yeah. I think for me, at some point, I came to the realization that like whatever I achieved professionally would like pale in comparison to how I raised my kids. And if I wasn't around for that, then I was like failing my primary mission. And so I think that I needed to kind of reorder some priorities in my mind, and it worked out where I could commission and still take care of that mission, which is at least equally important because, you know, having kids, like whatever good I do, it's going to be multiplied through them and the way they live their lives. So I have to get that part right.
And conversely, you fuck that up.
Yeah, right.
That comes back in spades.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just sort of reordering of priorities kind of led me into the manpower thing. But you know, there is still the fire to like be the trigger puller, as Keith talked about. I'm sure you still have it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Sal and I talk about that all the time. You know, the big joke is, you know, you run into these scumbags on an airplane or some shit.
Yeah.
You know, what do you do? They're looking at my arms. I'm a Baptist minister. What do you think of? But at some point, the question always comes up: do you miss the Marine Corps? Yeah. Every day, especially since the further away you get from it, you don't remember the shit. You know, standing duty on Christmas Eve, or sitting in a fighting hole that's 3 feet full of water and it's 31.5 degrees. You just remember pulling triggers and being with the bros and how cool it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, which seems to be my segue lately, you said it earlier. Like, it's an orchestra, man.
That's a
There's
perfect
so
analogy.
many components to it that are important. Like, they're all really important. And you know, we give lip service to that sometimes, but that trigger puller can't do his job if the things that he needs to do that aren't in place, and that requires a lot of support mechanisms.
A lot, and you don't even if you go from either, you know, OCS, TVS, IOC, boom, or boot camp, SOI, some schools, boom, you never see it. And so if your arms aren't as big as ours, then fuck you, you're a homo.
Right.
And if you only knew, and then you get older, you start going, I was a jackass for a long time, not realizing what those guys are doing. Yeah, Lance Corporals making decisions at 2 a.m. on their own to figure out how to get you something you desperately need. And if it doesn't show up, you berate them. If it does show up, you're like, cool, dude, and walk away. When you should get that guy a hug and a kiss. And it takes some level of maturity to figure that out.
Yeah, it really does.
Which some people never get.
That's good. Brian, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, me too.
Lieutenant,
it's good to see you, man.
Lieutenant Ed.
Likewise,
And
your Uncle Sal and your Uncle Keith are proud of you.
and we're looking forward to seeing what you're going to do with this, man, because the future is bright for you.
It is.
Appreciate it.
No sweat, man. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Now we got Ebola. Nice.